Want to count down? You can count down. Just 113 days left to go before the NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race here on Speed. NASCAR's biggest stars, and it will be live in a winner-take-all dash for cash. The NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race only on Speed. We're looking forward to that, and we have our leaders getting ready to go. The leader, Joey Hand for Ruby Tuesday Championship Racing, and Calvin standing by.
Well, the team were watching the times of the 76 machine. They were the first guys to really come in and make the choice of slick tires, and they suddenly saw that they were running a good pace. That was the call. I believe they had about 6 or 7 more laps of fuel available to them. When you start to lose a big bunch of times to someone out there on slicks, they made the call. This team is very confident. They really struggled here in the test. There was really a lot of frowns on the faces of everyone, and they just found something. It wasn't on the racetrack. They went back, looked at all of the data, and as the Crawford group, working in conjunction with Alex Job Racing, who came up with a setup they were a lot happier with, and they really had to backtrack a little bit. When the car's handling so diabolically like it was at the test, you kind of get lost and go down a path. You have to retrace your steps a little bit. Right now, it's Joey Hand strapping in his regular teammate, Bill Auberlen. Joey doing a tremendous job. Crawford, in fact, used him towards the latter part of last year to do some testing and said, boy, can this driver really get the job done? Great performance by this team today.
This is Max Angelelli taking over from Wayne Taylor in the number 10 SunTrust car.
Max the Axe is trying to get some life in this Pontiac motor right now. Bit of a problem going on. Looks like it might be a starter issue or maybe a clutch issue. He's stuck in some kind of gear. He can't see. The dashboard lights weren't allowing him to see which gear he was in, and there's some confusion here as to what's going on. And remember, Angelelli, one of the most experienced drivers in these series, so it must be something that he's not used to as to why this car is not able to find neutral and get in the right gear. Brian.
Jimmy Vasser just finished his service in the 99 Gainesco Pontiac. Left, rain tires off, slick tires on, so Vasser's going to have to take several laps to get accustomed to these slicks out there. It's very cool right now. It's very damp, especially offline. He's got to be careful.
And yes, that's an appropriate phrase, because the 76 has just spun. Got to be careful. That's Darren Turner behind the wheel. Bill Auberlen's able to nip up the inside, and we've got yet another new race leader, the 61 AIM Autosport car. And the guy who used to drive for this team, Colin Brown, is the new race leader. He and his 3 young teammates, Derek Bell, have all led this race at least once. That's a fabulous accomplishment for these young guys.
Yeah, it is amazing the way they can do that at that age, but of course it depends on, you know, what they came up with. But to drive in these conditions, such a variant of conditions over a long period of time is really very creditable.
Wayne Taylor Racing has got the SunTrust machine going. Max Angelelli is released. To come back to your driving efforts, you said to me before, to Dorsey and I, that you really wanted to do this one more time with your son Justin. Can we read anything into that that puts a period on your career?
Well, really, yes. Although I feel a bit cheated today because I got all nervous. Well, I wasn't really nervous. I was very relaxed about it, but I got built up to doing it. The team did such a great job, and you know, I was part of a team, and it really felt great. I wasn't just dropped into the car, and then you sort of suddenly find you don't drive it. I feel a bit let down, really. So I don't quite know what to think at the moment. But you know, as a driver, and I'm sure Dorsey knows this, and you know, any of the guys that have driven hops as well, you're part of this circus. This is your life out here, and it's very difficult to sort of, when somebody says, how about driving the Daytona 24 hours, well, how many people would say no?
Sure.
With that experience, and I think it's very difficult. So, I mean, I've said it was my last race, but I didn't do it, did I?
Well, let's not put a period on it then. Let's leave it open for 12 more months.
Well, I'd like to say so, but, you know, if the team ever came back again and they wanted me to, I'd find it difficult as long as not to do it, because as long as I feel as fit as I do now, I will certainly do it again.
Think about the pressure on this man. Kurt Busch, 2004 NASCAR champion, team with Elio Castro Neves and Ryan Briscoe. A lot more road course experience than he. This is only his second Rolex 24. He's in wet, slippery, slick conditions, and he's doing a beautiful job. He has got the Penske Taylor Racing car in second place right now.
You see what he did just then? He went over to the back part of his helmet, and he was trying to find the fresh air hose that connects to the helmet. Obviously, it's not hooked up. He didn't like it. He's getting hot, so he popped that visor up to get a little cool air. air. It's about 140 degrees inside that car. Not a lot of air gets in there if that hose isn't hooked up.
But the other thing to remember is that a lot of these guys haven't driven at this time of night in the cold, and it's quite cold out there. And, you know, cold air when you've just got in the car can be pretty nasty. And at the same time, as you well know, that once, of course, if you've got to have your visor up or have it down with the pipe in, or else have it up so you can see. And I thought he might have been lifting it to get a better vision out through the front because of these terrible conditions.
You know, one of the bad things about that cold weather is once you get in the car like this, like he is, he's going to run an hour, say maybe even 2 hours. He's going to be really warm. His body temperature is going to be up around 110, 11 degrees. Then he's going to get out to go back to the motorhome to go to sleep. And that cold air is going to get a hold of him. And you end up with those darn cramps, those muscle cramps, those spasms. And it's horrible. I used to get them in my legs and my calves. And Calvin Fish actually got one in the upper bunk and took a dive out the top of the bunk and smashed his nose right on the side. Darndest thing I ever saw.
Here he is.
Well, I'm down here, Dorsey. The nose is still the same size, unfortunately, but the 9 car is in. Kurt Busch done a tremendous job in very tricky conditions, and it just doesn't surprise me anymore. We've seen over the years with Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, and certainly Tony Stewart how these NASCAR boys can come here and adapt to these conditions that are thrown at you during a 24-hour race. But now it's the dancing man behind the wheel, Helio Castroneves. This team really used a lot of savvy and patience in that early going there. They had some damage to the race car. I believe Helio got a little bit lucky that the damage wasn't more severe, but they certainly regrouped quickly, got the car back up in the lead lap, and now running at the front of the pack. So routine stop, Helio's underway. Back to slick tires.
Roger Penske said, I just think this is a fabulous exercise where some of the guys from my NASCAR operation, the majority of the guys from the IndyCar operation, and then of course I've got my sports car boys, they can blend, they can all get together and focus on one very exciting project. The personnel that are here, the majority are the IndyCar guys who are working on the Toshiba Pontiac Riley. But this is a very spirited effort. They want to win this motor race. Roger, the captain, wants to do it one more time. And they are well in contention. Derek Bell, thank you for joining us. Sad that you didn't get to race today, but great to see you, and we will see you again next year.
Thanks for having me. Bless you.
Welcome back to Daytona. Kurt Busch just jumped out of the number 9 Penske Taylor racing machine, and Kurt looked like you had a lot of fun out there tonight.
It was. I was smiling from ear to ear, just loving the fact that I was driving at night in the rain, something I'd never done before, and our car's in the top 10 on the lead lap, so there's quite a bit of pressure, but yet still a long way to go. So the mentality I took was just protect the race car and let some of the faster guys with more experience go ahead.
Most of the teams have very little experience on this new Pirelli wet. How did it feel to you? What were the characteristics?
You know, the first few laps, you know, Wayne Taylor told me that they have to develop heat, and they will. And so you have to have confidence that it'll gain the heat and that your lap times will continue to drop, even though you're still using some of the same shift points and braking points. But some of the guys were on the gas pretty hard, and I felt like I shouldn't chance my opportunity to try to pick up lap time, because it's just better to keep it smooth and bring it back here for Helio and Ryan.
You've been driving a tremendous pace throughout the course of this weekend. If you could really criticize yourself right now, what do you need to work on still?
Still with turn 4, the dog leg, that's where you hold it wide open. You know, the downforce is there. I need to trust it, as well as the bus stop chicane on the back straightaway. You're rifling down in there way deeper than you ever would with a cup car, and so I got to carry that speed through there. My minimum speed's too low, but we're having a great time with it.
All right, mate, get some rest.
Thank you.
Well, I hope he doesn't get back in the cup car next week then and drive it down to about the 2 marker and end up way out in the woods somewhere, because that's what will happen when you switch back and forth.
But isn't that amazing, and that he's doing such a wonderful job, but still so critical, still looking and analyzing every piece, really wants to be better as the countdown clock continues. 17.5 hours to go. Let's hear from the Indy Racing League's Rookie of the Year 2007. He's with Brian.
Well, Ryan Hunter-Reay just climbed out of the 91 Riley Matthews Pontiac. Man, it doesn't get any busier than that. It was wet, it was dry, you had a couple of ping pong balls with GT traffic. Who says that sports car racing isn't exciting?
There's nothing like it in the world. As tough as it was so much fun. We had a great car there in the dry. I was sitting second. I was looking at my chops there. I think I could have pulled away, but it started raining. We took a gamble, stayed out on dry tires, and there was no grip whatsoever. Went into turn 1 crawling in first gear, and it just slid out from under me. And then our first set of rain tires had a big vibration. That's where we really lost out. We had to come in and get another set. So I was having a blast, though.
Most teams have gone to slicks now, the track beginning to dry a little bit, but how treacherous is it, Ryan, when you go to make a move on a GT car because it seems to be still damp offline?
I can't even tell you how it is out there because the windscreen is totally just, you know, stone rash, and you can't see the line. So it's hard enough in the dry during the day. You put it with wet and the windscreen's fogged up. It's crazy.
185 miles an hour in the rain, and you can't see. Dorsey, that's why we do television these days.
Yeah, it's exactly why we do television these days. This is Tom Nastasi with his Mustang, and right before he pulled it over there next to the guardrail, it came smoking heavily. I don't know if he's lost an engine or what's happened, but he's out of the car, and I suspect his day or night is over.
Calvin, what's the situation with the 02 Ganassi car?
Well, they're in here. It should have been a routine stop. Salvador Duran still behind the wheel after that off that cost him several laps, and there's a slight damage to the left front here. I'm not sure if that's a consequence of the earlier incident or something new, but the front splitter is a little bit loose, and the mechanic really struggled to get the left front wheel off and out of the body wheel well. So not sure they really changed much, so it might have just been the angle of the steering. He pulled in very close to the wall as well. Back underway, but they've got a long road. Whoa, really slippery there on the slicks under the wet pit lane still. The track may be drying out, but pit lane still very wet indeed on slick tires.
Well, the bad news is if that splitter that you're talking about, Calvin, is damaged, and it looks like he was pushing up and down on it pretty easily. If that's damaged, he will lose significant front downforce. In fact, it usually starts flapping up and down. Ooh, a little skid right there, too. On the high-speed nature of this racetrack, 185 plus miles per hour, anything aerodynamically that's loose is a hazard.
They went 11 laps down after that damage earlier on when Salvador Duran exited pit road through this section, around a couple of corners, heading to the kink, and ran off the circuit, and big damage to the front of that car. Salvador's done a good job because he got a lap back, only to then come into the pits, as Calvin detailed right then.
Yeah, there you go again. With new tires, these cars are on ice skating rink for about 2 to 3 laps till those temperatures come up. You have to be so gentle with your throttle foot as not to get an easy little spin.
Raced against Sebastian Vettel in the World Series by Renault early last year. Cal?
Well, 75 is having a tremendous run here. Tracy Krohn just jumped out from behind the wheel after putting a very impressive stint indeed. There's going to be another one of the tall guys, Ollie Gavin, now jumping in behind the wheel. He's had a few outings here, but certainly has made his mark with the Corvette racing team over the last few seasons, winning multiple championships. But he would like nothing better than to add this 24-hour race to his resume. So as the Englishman, Ollie Gavin behind the wheel, and what a stellar lineup they've put together here. In the 2 cars, 6 of the drivers have Formula One experience, Lee.
Well, they have got their hands full when they exit the pit box and head out into the main section of the lane.
This is not a good situation. We only have 1 light on the front of that car. It only needs 1, but it's got to be on constant. There we go. He turns on the other ones. Mark Raffoff said the other day, if you've got a flashing light and it won't stay on, and you don't have 1 light that'll stay on, you're going to be coming back in the pits. But he's got them both lit now.
And some have various sequences when the pit lane speed limiter is activated. Some have 1, some have 2. Look at the 2 Shank cars going hard at it there, just off to the right of the screen. Armendinger and Oswaldo Negri having a great scrap. Brian, what do you have for us?
Just checked in with the Black Forest Motorsports team moments ago. The 15 car out, the motor has gone. Also just checked in down at the 22, your defending race winners at Allegra Motorsports. 22 is going behind the wall, some type of electrical condition there. They don't know if they'll be back out, guys.
6.5 hours into the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Under very tricky conditions here. Wet, greasy, although on a positive side it is drying, and it has been a very intriguing race with no real dominating team or driver. If you've just tuned in to Speed's live coverage, welcome folks. Hi, Leigh Diffey along with Dorsey Schroeder, and we have Brian Till and Calvin Fish working pit road for us. Thanks to Bob Varsha, David Hobbs, Andrew Marriott and Chris Neville, who worked very hard earlier in the day. We're taking you for another 2 hours right through until 10 p.m. Eastern this evening. We take a break and we rejoin you from 6 tomorrow morning, of course East Coast time, and we'll go right through until 2. 8 hours of coverage right through tomorrow as we count down the 46th running of this great American race, and it has been great so far. 14 changes of leaders, 14, I think maybe might even be up to 15 now, as Bill Auberlen regains the lead of this motor race over Jimmy Vasser and Mark Wilkins. And let's bring you up with some more highlights, most recently when it went dark, things really got hot, that's for sure. Hour 5, approaching the darkness. Graham Rahal had to really wrestle the Mike Shank Ford back to pit lane with a flat front left. And then the Seagull Sport entry slammed the barrier quite hard, giving the officials a scare. And then Salvador Duran, this was the talking point. We were mentioning it just a few moments ago. Off track damage. The Ganassi team went to work like only Chip's boys can and got this car back out on track. As I mentioned, they went 11 laps down. Duran stayed behind the wheel, gained a lap back, but they just visited pit road. 6th hour highlights, and this was pretty crazy stuff. Ken Dobson was behind the wheel right there of the race's edge car, and then the rain came down. There were dramas for the SunTrust entry. Wayne Taylor, the team principal, was driving, and a little bit of a mystery. They were able to get it fired up again and get Wayne heading in the right direction. As Max Angelelli is behind the 10 right now. Current leader, as I mentioned, Bill Auberlen for Alex Job Racing in the Ruby Tuesday Porsche Crawford. 14 different leaders and 5 caution periods for a total of 19 laps and just 3 cars out of the race thus far.
Well, while we're talking about the night, let me respond to an email sent to me by David Fuller of Marion, New York. He says, as a racer, which would you rather avoid, rain or having to drive at night? Rain, definitely. Driving at night isn't that bad, really. You get used to the sight. The visibility is not a problem. It's much cooler in the car. The car responds better. In fact, you'll see most of the fastest race laps turned always at night. Rain, on the other hand, is quite unnerving. You don't know what you're going to get as it dries out, as it's doing right now. Or you could just be one part of the racetrack wet, one part of the racetrack dry, and it just keeps you on pins and needles.
And these lights that you see blanketing the Daytona International Speedway are only at 20% of their capacity, but it is still of huge assistance to the boys out there.
Oh, no question. Before they had these lights, I remember I drove here early on, and you really needed your headlights to work and have them aimed quite well. Now the aim is not much difference whatsoever. Even at 20% lighting around here, it's like a little city down there.
If you've been doing something else, just tuned in and are catching up with the Rolex news, this Ruby Tuesday car, the race leading car, Bill Auberlen behind the wheel. He's switched from Seagull Sport, and he also has a new partner. Joey Hand will be his man all the way through 2008. Can the Ruby Tuesday boys go all the way here at the 24? Speed's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Pirelli. Power is nothing without control. Riding aboard the 10 SunTrust Pontiac Riley with Max Angelelli. And currently playing catch-up. 14th position overall with some work to do. As we go down to pit lane and speak with one of the team principals from the Daytona prototypes. Cal?
Here with Tracy Krohn, and Tracy looked like he had a tremendous run there on the last stint, holding the car well up inside the top 10, but very tricky conditions. How was it out there?
It was just really slippery. You know, it was wet, dry, and half the track would be rained on, and then it wouldn't be raining. Just kept it very conservative, kept it on the track. There's a lot of guys faster. There were some that was faster than they were, and it was just very conservative run and keeping the car online.
Talk about the decision that you made and the group made to bring the Rileys here as opposed to the new Proto Auto machine.
Well, you know, the Proto Auto is certainly going to be a very fast automobile. The difficulty here is that we didn't feel like we got enough test time on it. So we didn't want to come to a 24-hour race without enough test time. There's too many little wear parts that can go wrong. We just need a little more seasoning on it. I think it's going to be a great car.
All right, mate. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Thanks, man. Thanks, I appreciate it.
And here is one of Tracy's cars. This is the car that he is sharing with Eric van der Poel and Oliver Gavin, and it's Ollie behind the wheel right now in the 75. Currently in 12th position overall and in the Daytona prototype class. Let's talk GT for a moment. There's been a variety of changes of leads because Nick Ham has now regained the lead in the 70 over Richard Westbrook. Sasha Masson was in the lead not long ago, and Tim Sugden is right in the mix as well. Someone said to me yesterday, is there any decent driver who's ever driven a Porsche GT3 left in Europe? Because they are all here. Anybody who's ever driven one of these cars is here. Sasha Masson, Jörg Bergmeister, Tim Sugden, just all of the guns. Timo Bernard, Romar Dumas, Mike Rockenfeller. As we take you back to a replay, this was the pass for the lead when Richard Westbrook was pressuring. This is good stuff too. Sasha Masson's up ahead in the 86.
That's your bus stop, exiting the bus stop. We're up onto the banking here, working the draft. Actually, he's got a good run on him coming off of there. Moves to the high side, let his intentions be known. He's just going to drive right by.
Good close racing on the bank. TRG's Richard Westbrook.
There you go, outside. Look at what it looks like to get that momentum run out of that bus stop and carry it down that straightaway off the bank turn, headed towards start-finish line. I reckon if Porsche hadn't designed and built the 911, there wouldn't be any race cars in the world.
What a race car it is. So that was a few moments ago. This is now. This is live. Nick Ham has got the Speed Source Mazda number 70 back up front. As we enjoy watching these guys, we're going to get to another email. And that says, how does the pit refueling system work? Is the fuel pumped or gravity fed? We're going to get to that question in a moment because Brian is standing by with something a little more urgent. Brian, what do you have for us?
Well, in the meantime, I can take a question from Steve Bound here at Daytona Beach. If a car is damaged and has to go to the garage for repairs, how long are the teams given to repair it? Well, the answer to that is as long as it takes. Makes no difference. Or is there certain types of repairs that are not permitted? Yes, there are different types of repairs. You can't replace an engine block. You can't replace a tub or an entire chassis. However, you can do just about anything else that you want to short of those two items.
The 30 Races Edge Mazda, has it been off track and back on again? It's running slowly. Boy, these guys have been beaten up. This is a new car too.
They need to put a target on that. Just paint a big bullseye on it. Everybody wants to take a shot at it for some reason.
John Marachi's boys, it's a big season for those guys coming up. They switched from the Pontiac to the new Mazda RX-8, but they have been beaten up out there tonight. It has not been a pleasurable trip for the Amquip Mazda RX-8.
Car's pretty strong though, because it's been drop kicked on all four corners and it doesn't show much wear and tear, does it?
Looking good so far. You saw how exasperated Ken Dobson was before. He's like, I'm just out there trying to do what I do, and people were coming from everywhere. There's a Pontiac GXPR running very slowly on the banking. Here's a replay of what happened to the 30 Mazda. Oh. Robert Thorne behind the wheel.
Big off right there. Luckily, didn't make too hard a contact. And look at that car. That car's really strong. It didn't do anything to it. That, of course, is in turn 3, the International Horseshoe.
It's the 06. Andy Pilgrim is driving this car right now. Running very slowly. We'll stay with GT. We've got back to Brian now. Brian, who do you have with you?
Greg Lowell's one of the principals of Farnbacher. Lowell's is here, and Greg, much like Kevin Buckler, you guys are running a full stable of Porsches down here. 7 of them, 1 of them out in front here just a few laps ago, but you've been in this position before. What's it going to take to get it from here to the checkered flag, get that watch?
Well, it's really early still. It's been a rough first 6 hours for us, but all the cars are still circulating. The 87 got unlucky early, and we're going to see. I mean, we're raising money, all right, both of the Team Seattle cars. Actually, they're running 4 and 5 in the stable right now, so we're pretty happy about that. Sasha just got in the car. He's getting used to it, and we'll see. But it's going to be a long, long night.
And I was going to say, you came loaded for bear, too, because you have some of the best Porsche drivers in the world driving with you this weekend. But all it shows is what luck plays in this, because some of your cars already down.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, we're lucky to have all these drivers, but the bottom line is you need luck. So right now, it looks like the 86 is going to be our horse for the race. The 89, I think it's running about P10 in class. In this race, I don't know if somebody can make up that kind of a difference. There's just too many good cars out there.
Talk about too many good cars. The other question that a lot of people have had for you and Kevin is 7 too many? Does it spread the resources too thin?
Well, again, what we've really set up here is we're running 3 different, teams within the team. Our 3 full-year cars have their own infrastructure. Team Seattle has their own. I think we have the resources to do it, but right now the luck isn't with us, so we'll see.
They've got their fingers crossed for the 86 guys. You heard him say, that's our horse, and it is stacked with some very deep talent as far as the drivers go.
York Hart in the 89 machine on screen right now. And there is some terrific GT battling going out there. Nick Ham, Richard Westbrook, Sasha Masson, Tim Sugden, and Paul Edwards. Brian Sellers for TRG has got himself up into 6th place in class, doing a nice job. As we ride on board with the reigning GT champion, Dirk Werner. Calvin, being Australia Day, January 26th, we've got an email question from an expat Aussie, Kevin Harrison from Ocala here in Florida. Can you handle this?
I sure can.
I know you left school at 12, but I'll speak slowly for you. How does the pit refueling system work is the first question. Second question, is the fuel pumped or gravity fed? And final question, why are there 2 hoses on the refueling system in the pits?
Okay, well, it's gravity fed, it's not pump fed, so essentially the fuel goes inside one of these rigs here. This is a standard rig that all of the teams have to use. Daytona prototypes have 24 gallons that is fed through here, so it flows down through here, they open up the valve, comes down through here. It's got a Grand Am mandated regulator in here that restricts the flow. It takes about 40 seconds to get that 24 gallons in the tank. Here we're looking at what's called the red head, so when the refueler plugs this into the side of the car, one of these red heads is actually feeding the fuel in, the other one is a vent, so when he sees the bobbles, a little foaming coming back through the other hose, he'll then pull it out, and now he's got all the fuel in.
Good job, Cal.
Did I answer all the questions, Lee?
Yeah, hey, did you get me an Australia Day gift?
I'm working on that, mate.
Brian.
Andy Pilgrim sits in the 06 Banner Racing Pontiac GXP. And the problem, the right rear, it looks like perhaps a half shaft or a CV, Dorsey. That is what provides the drive to the wheels, and they're going to have to replace the one on the right. You see it laying there on the ground behind the car. The crew going to work. They've got to remove the suspension and the hub to get the old one out, put the new one in. This is going to be a lengthy repair, and quite honestly, I'm surprised they're letting him do it on pit lane. Kind of surprised Andy Pilgrim could get this car back around to pit lane.
Well, he's lucky he did get it back around the pit lane, because when that breaks, you get stranded out there, that's all over. They'll have to tow you back. But it is a big job, no question about it. And that rotor he's touching that's glowing there, that's only 1,000 degrees or so.
As the Banner boys go to work, just listen to these names as we go to a commercial break. Bill Auberlen is leading Jimmy Vasser ahead of young Mark Wilkins. Dario Franchitti is 4th. AJ Allmendinger, this man on screen, Oswaldo Negri. Elio Castro Neves is 7th. Terry Borchella, Mark Goosens, and Buddy Rice. Does it get any better? As always, each Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, it is the Speed Report, where you can be brought up to date on everything in the world of motorsport. Go beyond the highlights, go beyond the stats. The Speed Report connects you to the world of motorsport like you've never experienced before. Filling in all the blanks, the Speed Report, and bringing you up to date as we give you the overview of the Daytona prototype class. As we went to break, we showed you the big names, we detailed the big names, but there's some really interesting storylines to go with these teams. It's a Porsche-powered Crawford that leads the way. Bill Auberlen at the wheel over Jimmy Vasser. Yet to see John Fogarty, the reigning Daytona prototype champion, co-champion, I should say. So Fogarty will be relishing the opportunity to get behind the wheel of the 99. Buddy Rice has worked the 58 back inside the top 10, just behind Goosens and the fellow Brumos car. Terry Borchella in the 59 right there behind Elio Castro Neves. So we'll continue to monitor the progress of some of the teams playing catch-up. How about in GT? The Brit, Richard Westbrook, has finally got the 66 TRG Porsche back out in front, but he and Nick Ham and Sasha Masson, they are having just a brilliant scrap for those top 3 placings in GT. Tim Sugden, who we know so well, doing a great job just ahead of Paul Edwards. Brian Sellers is in the mix. He's thrilled to be driving for TRG here. Mark Greenberg in the 80 as well for Synergy. Robin Liddell, his new ride this year in the 57. Stevenson And I was just about to say, because it rolls off the tongue, the Stevenson Corvette, but of course it's the Pontiac GXPR. And then Kevin Roush, who led for several laps yesterday, son of Jack Roush in the Coney Challenge, enjoyed a positive run there. He is in the top 10 in GT as we rode momentarily with Jimmy Vasser. The 99 Gainsco Lowe's Bob Stallings Pontiac. As we mentioned earlier in the show, success at this event, at this racetrack, has eluded them. But this is a good, strong run. Dorse, the car looks clean.
Yeah, and Jimmy's doing a good job. We're riding on board. There he is as we speak. Watch his eyes. He's very concentrated, very, very deliberate with his steering. You don't see him snatching away at the wheel. He doesn't have opposite block coming off corners. So doing a good job of maintaining that car's control, forward momentum.
There's a good little bit of scuttlebutt going around in the paddock and pit area at the moment too, that we may see Jimmy and a very good friend of his from open wheel racing in the past in a Daytona prototype more often this year. So stay on the various websites, speedtv.com, etc. Keep your ears and eyes open for that one. We may see Jimmy a lot more in season 2008.
Well, you can tell from all the drivers' comments that these cars have evolved into a very fun car to drive. Now, they didn't used to be that way. At first, when they came, they weren't much fun. They were a lot slower than they are now. But nowadays, the balance of the car, the power of the car, the boys that drive them, they love them.
Pretty robust too. You can, you can bang and slam and have some good hard racing.
Let me do a quick email from Karen Shivers, who was wondering about the Daytona prototypes, whether or not they were using sequential shift transmissions. Well, the answer is yes, they are sequential shift, but some are 5 speeds and some are 6. It depends on which engine you happen to be running, which gearbox you're allowed to run.
Well, timing's everything. We were just mentioning how tough and robust these cars are. You can go door to door and race pretty rough. Check this out. This is just a few moments ago. Angelelli puts a pretty slick move on Alan McNish. McNish says, yeah, you want to fight that hard for 14th? I'll fight you that hard for 14th. And try and find your way out of this one.
A little Robbins racing. Well, they do it here in the Daytona prototypes quite often, don't they?
Great driving from two brilliant sports car stars, McNish and Angelelli, going hard at it. We go back on board with Jimmy Vasser as he comes up on Sasha Masson. Of course, Sasha drives the Porsche prototype in the American Le Mans Series. Driven the GT Porsche she was made so famous for so many years, in quite some time. So stepping back into a GT car, but he is just surrounded by fellow GT stars, and he is loving it. We mentioned earlier in the 01 on screen, Dario Franchitti doing a great job. Let's hear from a very talented family member of his.
Well, indeed, it's his brother Marino Franchitti who's here in the pit wall. And Marino, you ran with your brother here a couple of years ago, I think 05 and 06, and had a great run. But talk about the Franchitti family and about the monumental season that Dario had, first and foremost, winning the Indy 500 and the IRL Championship. I don't think his two brothers are closer than you two. What did it mean to you personally?
It really meant everything. I mean, I don't think I could have been happier if I'd done it myself. I was so proud of him, especially coming back from the 2 huge accidents to win the championship, winning the 500, and then to have the peace of mind to walk away from it at that point and winning his last race. It was just a perfect year. It couldn't have been any better.
You certainly had a breakout season yourself, mate, over in the American Le Mans Series, running with the Andretti Green team, had superb performances, and you've been rewarded with a drive this year with the Dyson Racing program. I'm sure you're very excited.
Yeah, I can't wait to get started. I came out here a day early to come and watch Dario, and then I go to Sebring tomorrow morning just before the end of the race to make a seat and start testing Monday. So after driving the Acura, I'm really excited to see how the Porsche feels and how different it is and better and where it's worse, and just have some fun with it.
All right, mate, we look forward to seeing you this season.
Thank you.
Dorsey, for someone who made his name driving sports cars, Trans Am cars, etc., it's a very healthy time, whether it be in the Rolex Series or the American Le Mans Series, isn't it?
Yeah, it's back to a very good, healthy time. Things were really tough. Look at this mess right here. Dario Franchitti, how lucky can you be not to be injured in a wreck like that? Spectacular flip, no doubt about it. Here, another look, up and over, an aero flip, if you will. But to be T-boned here, luckily on the bottom side of the race car. We go from that bad one, and if you think it's bad enough, then we go on to Kentucky Speedway, and here we do it again.
And after that event, Dario said, I thought to myself, not again, not again. And both times, able to walk away from it. Here he is in the 01. Telmex, Chip Ganassi with Felix Sabates, Lexus Riley runs in the top 4 on the lead lap. He's just about half a minute down on race leader Bill Auberlen. A very united front at Team Ganassi, in search of an historic 3rd consecutive victory in the Rolex 24. Never been done before. And his partners in this one Pablo Montoya, the man he tied in the 1999 Kart Championship. And Montoya won on a countback of wins. Scott Pruitt and Memo Rojas. That's the 4-driver lineup in the 01 car. We drift back and we pick up the man who is chasing him, the 6 of AJ Allmendinger. And you put the scan on this young man's career, winning the Barber Dodge Pro Series, winning the Toyota Atlantic Championship, being the Champ Car World Series Rookie of the Year, winning races, vying for a championship, and then goes into stock car racing for the first time as McNish goes up the inside of the 81 of the Synergy Porsche and able to slice his way through there on Big Steve Johnson.
Isn't that great, too? Because I tell you what, it's still pretty slippery out there. There's a dry line, but McNish really being aggressive in traffic, trying to make up ground, no question there.
And AJ went everywhere last year. He was racing and trying to qualify and did some 16 or 17 events in the Nextel Cup last year. Did some Busch races, did some NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series races. He said, I was kind of a bit all over the map last year. I want to make it more refined, more focused this year. And of course, I want to qualify for more events. Well, I don't think there's anyone more proud than what his drivers, his team, have done so far this weekend, Calvin. Mike Shank.
Absolutely, here with Mike. And Mike, what a tremendous run you guys have had here this weekend. Talk about how proud you must be of you and the whole group here to sweep the front row in the company of some of the team owners like Chip Ganassi, Roger Penske, Wayne Taylor.
Dream come true. I haven't really sat down since. Race is going fairly well. We've had several setbacks on both cars, but we fought our way from a lap down on both of them. And now we're 5th, 6th. AJ's in the 6 car, Oz is in the 60. They're making great ground up. I want to thank Westfield Insurance for coming on board. They came on board big time with us on before the weekend. And thank Ford Yates.
You made the change, Mike, to the Ford power plant. You also made the decision to go with the new Riley bodywork. Lots of big gambles coming into a 24-hour race. It looks like it paid off in speed. Any concerns about reliability?
No, not at all. I didn't feel like it was a big gamble, to be honest with you. Bill Riley's always made a good car. We knew the Ford was a good power plant, plus the engineering support the Ford's given us is phenomenal.
Niggly problems always come throughout a 24-hour race. I understand there's some kind of clutch issue with the 60 car. Is there anything on either car that may stop you from getting to victory lane?
Right now, we do have a little bit of a clutch issue, but we've solved it. We've gotten around it. It could haunt us. There's no question about it. But we'll just keep going. We have a plan on how to react to it. And the 6-car Knockwood right now is running pretty good.
Mike, congratulations on the results so far. We're all proud of you, mate. Well done.
Very much. Thank you.
7 hours into this race, and you've got 4 different power plants in the top 4 positions. Bill Auberlen is being powered by a Porsche, Mark Wilkins in a Ford, Jimmy Vasser in a Pontiac, and Dario Franchitti in a Lexus. We'll have more from Florida in just a moment. Speed's live coverage continues tomorrow here from the World Centre of Racing from 6 a.m. and of course that is Eastern, and we go right through until 2 in the afternoon, bringing you everything live from the Rolex 24 at Daytona, the 46th running of this amazing event. And one team that plays such a critical role in the history of this event is Florida's own Brumos Racing. Buddy Rice is behind the wheel of the 58 at the moment, partnered with Darren Law and David Donahue. Both cars, this 58 and the famous 59, are both in the top 10, playing a little bit of catch-up. The 59 is ahead, it's in 8th position. This car right here with Buddy Rice is currently in 10th position. It's a very significant anniversary, 35 years since Hurley, Haywood and the late Peter Gregg won in the then newly painted white, red and blue Porsche Carrera RS. Cal, what do you have?
Well, I have the man himself, Hurley Haywood. Great to see you here. You're throttling back just a little bit this year. You got Joao Barbosa teaming up with JC France for the full season. You're just doing the long distance races. How tough is that for you?
Well, I'm having such a good time here that it's going to be tough, but you know, it's time, and I just want to concentrate on doing the long distance races and let JC and Barbosa do the short ones. And then when I'm not racing, I'll go up and help with the management of my car.
Very tough season for everyone here at Brumos with the passing of Bob last year. Bob Snodgrass, of course, the team principal. For you especially, Hurley, you've been connected to that man for so many years, and I know when you went to certain racetracks last year, it was very sad, but when you come back to the Daytona 24-hour race for the very first time without Bob, what are your feelings?
Well, it's really difficult. I mean, he's been at my side from 1973, the first time we won this, in every race thereafter. And so not having him here is a big chunk that's missing. I mean, everywhere I look, I see him. And I just hope he's looking down at us and smiling and wish a little luck our way.
All right, mate, best of luck.
Well, on the last lap, his teammate Terry Borcella was the fastest Daytona prototype on the track. And here comes the sister car. Buddy Rice is starting to zero in. He's just got by Mark Goosen, so the Brumos cars are running 8th and 9th respectively. Check this out, a really interesting stat on Hurley Haywood. The amount of laps he has done here around the Daytona International Speedway equates to 2.5 times around the Earth.
And he must be pretty fast to get across the water like that. That's an amazing stat. You know, 2.5 times around the Earth, around here at Daytona. Hurley's been here forever, too. And the cars, again, competitive. Look at them, both of them up there in the top 10, running good lap times. They're on a bit of a catch-up right now, but don't count them out.
Just staggering statistics there, aren't they? 5 times a winner of this race, 17,500 laps. And just a quirky little stat for those of you and for those historians, sports car historians, the team told me the last time he ran with fluorescent green on the car was back when he ran with Yost, and he won.
Well, it caught us out, didn't it, early on, that the two cars were painted alike.
Not us, it caught me out.
Okay, it caught you out. Well, it would have caught me out, but I hadn't said anything yet.
You let me trip over.
Exactly right.
Borcella and Buddy Rice. Terry, of course, was the inaugural Daytona prototype champion back in 2003 and has won multiple championships. And just kind of his career went a little bit quiet there last year and the year before. But he is back, and he's thrilled to be racing with Brumos. Drove with them last year, late last year, got the opportunity, and is really delighted to be running with them as he comes up on AJ Foyt the 4th in the 03 Vision car. Ducks up the inside, of course. AJ is down in 29th overall, and with some work to do. They had earlier dramas. We showed that in our highlights package, where they went behind pit wall to work out a problem. So there's a great intra-team battle going on here between Terry Borcella and Buddy Rice, fighting over 8th place. Helio Castro Neves will be the next car on their list, up ahead in 7th.
Take a real quick email from Greg in Daytona asking, do the DP and GT cars run the same set of brake pads and rotors the entire race? Well, they sure would love to, but in actuality, they cannot. The DP cars will probably use 2 sets of front brake pads and 1 rear. And we'll take a look right now at a pit stop being made. There's damage to the back of this car, I believe.
Brian's there.
RJ Valentine in the JLO Racing TRG Porsche number 64. A lot of damage to the rear of this car, especially the right rear. Looks to me, guys, like he must have gotten around and into one of the many tire walls around on the infield. This is going to be a lengthy stop. Now, we've seen these Porsches. They're really kind of bulletproof. Back in the back, very sturdy. But the problem is going to be they're going to have to get the rear deck lid sorted out and the rear wing. They can run without some of these valances in the back. That's not a problem. As I've said, we've seen it plenty of times before. But the rear wing, it's essential. You got to have that downforce, especially with the low grip that we have on the racetrack right now.
And that's a shame, because that car was in such a strong position when Tim Sugden was there. It was running in the top 3, top 4. So disappointment for one of the 7 TRG Porsches. Here's Nick Ham. The hamster is out in front. He leads Sasha Masson, and this mighty little RX-8 has done a sterling job so far. 3 different cars in the top 3 positions. Mazda leads a Porsche, leads the first Pontiac, and that is Paul Edwards.
Of course, these Mazdas were designed and built by Riley Technologies like a prototype, although they were finished off at Sylvain Tremblay's shop. the Speed Source guys, unlike the Porsches they're running against, which are factory-built race cars directly from Porsche.
Another car in this field built by Riley Technologies is the all-new BMW M6, campaigned by Automatic Racing. We haven't seen a lot of it today, but we will see a lot more of it throughout the year with Jeff Thornton, Dave Russell and the gang.
The car had trouble early on. It was the 90 BMW M6, beautiful race car. And I can answer another of the emails, actually. David from Mooresville, North Carolina, was asking, are these cars made of sheet metal or fiberglass? Well, neither. Both the Daytona prototypes and the GT cars are made of carbon fiber. Makes them pretty pricey, too.
All right, I think we've got a replay about this car here, the J-Lo Racing Porsche TRG. Damage to the rear and the right rear of the car. Let's take a look at it, Dorsey. It's in the International Horseshoe.
Oh, boy, he lost it in the brake zone, going in there and backs it hard into the tire wall. That's kind of a strange place to... He must have had rear brake bias on.
I think RJ just got caught out by that car in front as well. He was vying for the GT Championship last year with Andy Lally and is a fierce competitor. He is, off the top of my head, I think RJ some 63 years old. You will not find a fitter 63-year-old or a more determined businessman and competitor. So RJ will insist on staying in that car until they get it fixed. Sasha Masson currently runs second. More from TRG though. What do you have, Brian?
Well, Lee, you know, you're talking about RJ Valentine. He's such a great guy, and you talk about being fit. Well, I know that he could beat up any of us here on the Speed Crew. When I went down there earlier to talk to him, on the tent frame, he was doing pull-ups. As you said, he's 60-plus years old, and he was doing more chin-ups than I could do, I think, if I was standing actually on a stool. So the man, very, very fit. And as you said, he will sit in that car until it is ready to go back out, and he will head back out on that track with a vengeance.
Young Canadian Mark Wilkins has got the 61 AIM Autosport Ford Riley up into second place. He's got by Jimmy Vasser, so it's Orblin, Wilkins, Vasser. Dario Franchitti maintains fourth, and AJ Allmendinger is in the top 5. There's just 40 seconds separating those top 5 cars after more than 7 hours of racing.